Everyone, and welcome to this session of PD in your PJs. We are going to have some training with some awesome Seesaw teachers here with us today. If you haven't ever joined a live webinar, before we begin, you will hear us talking. You cannot talk, but you can ask questions by typing into our question box. We are recording this session, and because you registered for the webinar, you will get an email with the recording and slides after. So be looking for those to come about 2 hours after our webinar ends. And we're going to share lots of great ideas, so I'm sure you're going to want to refer back to those, so don't panic. They will come to you via email. We are going to save time for questions at the end as well to really open it up to the panel. But as they are presenting, if you have questions, you can also type them in. But just note, we're going to try to focus on the questions at the end. So without further ado, this is idea sharing with a panel of pre-K through second grade teachers. We have 3 fabulous panelists with us here tonight. We have Melodee Barnes, and she is coming from her pre-K experience in Illinois. We have Eric Robinson, who's a second grade teacher in Michigan, sharing his fabulous ideas. And Renee White is a first grade teacher in North Carolina. And I was talking to them all earlier, and I said, I think we need 2 hours to share all of our ideas, but we're going to condense it for you tonight and make it about 30 minutes. So super excited to have all of our teachers here tonight with us, and you'll see how you can connect with them on Twitter as well. They love to share ideas and answer questions that you have. So let's just jump right in. We're going to start with Melodee, and again, she's coming from her experience in the pre-K classroom. So Melodee, get started. Share some of your tips and tricks with us here. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. And what I really wanted to stress first in the pre-K world, because I love taking photos and I love taking videos, Seesaw for me was the, just epitome of wonderful apps to use. However, as I was, getting started, I found that I was taking some pretty arbitrary photos, kids standing and smiling, or I even got a couple of kids just kind of like twirling, showing off their cute skirts or a new hat. But then I, got into a bad habit, because then families were expecting to have pictures all the time of just little things. And as we know, a lot of families already have cell phones, multiple cell phones, and they're taking those kinds of pictures already. They're taking pictures of their kids smiling at the park, going down the slide, doing all of those fun things already. So for my purpose in the classroom, I needed to make sure that I was focusing on the how and the why. I wanted the families to know that when I take a picture, I want them to think about how did the child accomplish this task. So whenever I take a picture in the comments, I'm going to be sure to tell them how they were able to do this. So if a child is zipping a backpack and I'm taking a picture of that, I'm going to, mention after a discussion with the whole class about zipping backpacks, a child approached me and said, "Hi, Mrs. Barnes, I know how to zip my backpack," and proceeded to zip the backpack. And I was able to whip out my iPad or my phone and take a quick video or photo of that. So I want to be sure to explain how the child was able to come to that reasoning or that realization, so that the family can say, wow, first, I didn't know that my child could zip, or B, I knew my child could zip, but maybe because I'm doing it all the time for them because we're rushing to go out of the house, this is something that my child can do if I just wait a little bit. Another example of how is, what did the child say that he was not able to say before, or do that they were not able to do before? So again, how was that taught? Was there a play scheme that was taught in preschool? Did you teach a child how to play with dinosaurs and they didn't know how before, or teach them how to go up a particular ramp and go down that ramp? It's really important to be specific for families so that those pictures mean something and the child and the family can celebrate at home. Why? Why are you showing this child engaged in this activity? So again, you can just reword that. Why is this child painting this picture? A lot of times we ask a question of a student. So if someone's at an easel and they're painting, they got blue and red and yellow on the paper, and you're not really sure what the picture is. Sometimes they can't tell you what it is. A child might say, I don't know. And then you can say, well, why did you pick red? Why did you pick yellow? Why did you pick blue? And a lot of times kids will say, I picked red because I like it, or I picked yellow because it looks like the sun. So now in those comments you can say, Cindy painted a picture using red, yellow, and blue, and they picked red because they like it and yellow because it's the sun. So again, using that description to really explain why you're taking the picture or what's happening in the picture is really, really great for families. And then we want to go paperless. This is really, really important because I feel like a lot of times we stuff things in children's folders and backpacks, and they stay there. So what I have found is that families are still getting the content and the information if I just go ahead and post it in a PDF or make a picture of it, save it as a picture, and upload it right into their portfolio. It doesn't clog up the portfolio at all as far as preschool is concerned. I think it just enriches it and makes it easier for families to access all that they need to access. So next, I think it's important for us as preschool teachers to really show our lessons. As we know at this age, children are not going home saying exactly what they did at school. They're not saying, well, Mrs. Barnes first had circle time, and then we had a great literacy lesson, and then after that we went to center time and we explored and learned through play. So that's not something that they talk about. So what I like to do is actually take a video of myself, whether the children are in the room and it's just me, but the children can be heard, or out of the room, and I'm going to just do a quick video, 5 minutes or less, explaining what it is that I'm teaching so that families can imitate that at home. And a lot of times families will say, oh, that's what Johnny was doing in his room. He was doing, you know, all the steps that you show in this particular lesson. As a matter of fact, this just happened last week. So I was doing like a little disappearing act with numbers, and I would take all the objects I had on the table away, and I would say, and now we have how many? 0. So a little girl said, or a mom said that they were making cookies and they were putting the chocolate chips on the cookies, and the little girl took all the chocolate chips off and said, now how many chocolate chips do we have on this cookie? 0. And the mom couldn't understand why the child was taking all the chocolate chips off, but that's why, because you know, we were doing this lesson and I was able to show that via video, and it made a connection with the child, and I got to hear about it, which made it more meaningful for me as well. Okay, so this is also really important. Teachers, educators, anybody who's listening to this, please remember to give yourself a break. I try not to ever give my families expectations of how often I'm going to post. I never say it's going to be every day, and I never say it's going to be every week. Sometimes I just tell them our classrooms are busy places. And because we're busy learning and growing and exploring, what you get in your child's portfolio is a welcome surprise. So, you know, a lot of times I post more often than they expect, but because I didn't give them the expectation up front, they're always pleasantly surprised. They're always engaged. I get lots of likes and views and families being engaged with the content. And that's something that I would like to stress, because as preschool teachers or teachers in general, we're so busy with other websites and other documentation and other notes that we're constantly taking. I'm sure a lot of you are probably working right now after having worked all day, so you don't want another thing to have to, you know, bog you down or pressure you with having to get done. I even saw someone say, you know, that they just took all the pictures and then on the weekend they pushed them all through to their families. I also think that's a great idea. I've tried that, although sometimes I forget why I've taken the picture. So I try to do it that evening if I've taken some really good pictures and video and I want to upload them. But just give yourself a break. I think that's so important for yourself, your own mental health, and for the families as well, that they understand that you're busy and you don't have time to post all the time. So those are my.
I love them. Those are such great tips.
Great.
From your awesome experience in pre-K. So thanks, Melodee, for sharing, and we'll have time to ask questions at the end too. But now we're going to switch gears and go into first grade with Renee. Renee, start telling us about some of the awesome things you're doing in your first grade classroom. It looks like we're starting here with math.
Yes, math is one of my favorite. My kids have tons of things in their math portfolio folder already, just because it's a really cool way to show their thinking and give them a chance to explain. So all of these that you see on your screen were done with just the camera and then the drawing tool. And the first one up in the left-hand corner, my students took a picture. I had used one of the little bingo dot markers and just put dots all over construction paper to work on the subitizing and finding partners. And they just had to take a picture of it and then use the draw pencil to put in what partners they were able to find and create their addition equation out of it. Down below in the middle is just a flyer from like one of the Seesaw book clubs or scholastic book clubs. And again, we were working on addition and putting the bigger number in their head and counting on with the littler one. So they had to pick 2 books to buy and circle what they purchased, and then use the draw tool to show me what the books were, write their addition equation, and you can see the little count-on dots to show the number that they counted on with. The one in the right-hand corner is an example, again, of an addition equation, and the students starting to learn how numbers are made up differently, and they just drop some chips on a table, and then the way they landed, they use them to create the partners and to draw their math mountain around them to show me that they got this many yellow, this many red, and then together what their total would be. What I love about it is that I didn't put the videos in, I not only got the drawings, but for a lot of them, they chose to do the drawing with the pencil tool and then actually record their voice and explain what they did too and why. So that was really awesome to hear their explanation. This one is an example of just working on kind of the sequence of numbers in math, and the students had a mixed-up bag of numbers and again had to just dump them on a table, and some were empty and they had to figure out what the missing numbers would be in the sequence and use that picture, the camera to take a picture, and the draw tool to fill in what the missing numbers would be and explain how and why they knew that. The second photo on the right is also, again, just another one with the camera and the draw tool. Super easy way to get math from kids. It was just a menu, and they had to choose an item to buy for lunch and draw it out with tens and ones, or they could choose 2 items to draw with tens and ones and then compare them with greater than, less than. So again, some of them gave me just the visual, which is enough, but others gave me the visual and then recorded their voice on top of it. Seesaw and science, this is one of our favorites because it's so easy to do with the labeling tool and the photo tool. The first one is just a picture of an experiment we did finding silt that's hidden in sand. We were studying earth materials unit, and the students just took a picture and used the draw tool and the little captions tool to type, or sorry, not captions, the labeling tool to type in what the 3 layers were that they saw. The one on the right, when we were studying earth materials, is just a rock, and the students chose to just type in all around the rock, kind of like a little mind map, the different ways that they would describe the rock and the different properties that they observed.
Yeah, and I love these. I'm going to interject for a second too, Renee, because I think just the examples you've shown so far are just great examples of what you're already doing in your classroom, and you're just using Seesaw to expand on that and elaborate on that, and a lot of times take the place of what might normally take place on a worksheet in terms of recording, but instead they're just in the moment recording it. So I think these are just great examples of easy ways to integrate Seesaw and just your daily, content that you're studying in your classroom.
And parents love it because they don't have to wait to see it when it goes home in a folder.
Right, exactly. Exactly. All right, let's talk about writing.
Writing, obviously we love to publish in Seesaw and take lots of pictures and read our stories, but I decided this year to also use it before that point, and we did a little collaborative write as a class about what we did for Dot Day, and the students walked me through sentences that would make sense and different things we could use, and then they got a copy sent to them without any punctuation or capitalization, and they had to use that little three dots dot 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 tool, and if they touch it, they can hit copy edit, and it sends it back to themselves. And then they either typed in the punctuation, or some of them chose to do a screenshot instead and get it from the camera roll, and then they used that draw tool to write in the punctuation and the capital letters that were missing to do all the editing. So it was really fun, easy practice for them to do with a partner. The picture on the right is just an example of what it looks like to use the notes tool in Seesaw, because we do a free write Friday, and I've got some students that have really decided that's where they like to do their writing, and it's kind of like a little online journal for them. So it's been really neat to see that continue every week. They hit the copy edit and they go back and add to it. And these two are both from reading, which is also really fun with Seesaw. I used Buncee to create slides for the beginning of the year for students just because they haven't learned to log into our Buncee account yet. But I created blank slides, and they had to do a quick little retelling answering the major, who, what, when, where, why questions of a story. Some of them used the drawing tool to write in their answers on their screenshot, and other ones took their screenshot and decided to use the labeling tool and just type it in. But either way, I got great information from the kids and was able to see what they understood, what they didn't, which questions they had trouble with, and which ones they were able to produce from the book. And these are two more quick, easy, fun examples from reading. The one on the left was very beginning of the year. The students traced their hand, and we talk about using your hand to do a good retelling of character, setting, and then events. So they just had to write down kind of like 1 to 2 words around their fingers and then take a picture of it. And then they drew in the characters with the little draw tool, which was super cute to see. And then they used their hand to record their voice and give me a quick retelling of their story. The second one on the right is when we got into a questioning unit, so I could tell that they were thinking about their reading. They had to stop and take a picture of a page where they asked themselves a question, and then they used that labeling tool to type in the question they were asking, and then they would go back later on and take another picture of their page and either record and use the draw tool to circle their answer, or some of them typed in their answer that they found. But it was a really cool way to let me see that they were using text evidence and really thinking about what they were reading.
Love that. So before we move off from Renee here, a couple questions just came in. So the app that she was talking about in this slide is called Buncee, and basically it's a presentation tool that you can do all sorts of fun backgrounds and get some presentations ready for students. Lots of teachers share them to Seesaw. So she wasn't having students write on each slide, but instead you were saving a slide to Seesaw, right?
Yes. I actually gave them a presentation that had a video link in it, like a hyperlink to an Elephant and a Piggy book, and they had to listen and read along with the book. And then they did screenshots of the blank pages and filled in the answers that they found. Perfect.
All right, thanks, Renee. So many awesome ideas. So Eric again, to remind you, teaches 2nd grade. Eric, I know you have amazing ideas, so I'm just going to let you take it away here.
Yeah, 2nd graders, I mean, they're practically grown-ups, so we do a lot of cool stuff. One mini tip before I get started, by the way, I just thought of this, is try to connect grandparents and extended family to your students' journals too. Usually, I've had the experience that parents start to kind of get a little apathetic by the time you get to maybe March or April, and they don't make as many comments and things like that. But those grandparents, they stay strong all year long. So I would try to get as many people in the extended families connected as you can. So I use copy and edit quite a bit. Again, it's using those 3 dots down at the bottom right under a post, and then your children can copy and edit something you shared with them. So one way I do this is independent fluency practice. So this particular example I got from Teachers Pay Teachers, but you could take a picture out of a book, you could take a screenshot, and I'll give you some more resources in a minute. Couple quick tricks is you can see down the bottom, I use the caption tool to add kids' names down there. So I might have different kids reading a different fluency passage. And so I will put that right in the caption so they can find the one that's just right for them to copy and edit. Another thing you can see, I tagged it in our reading folder. And when you tag it to a certain folder before you share it with kids, it'll automatically re-tag it when your kids do the work. So if they don't remember to put it in reading or writing or math, it automatically puts it in there for them. So the great thing about Seesaw for Fluency is my kids will read this page all week long, and they can watch their time. On the top as the video is recording, and they can go back and listen to themselves, which, you know, for all kids, K4 especially, to listen to themselves read is really important. So love it for fluency. All right, you can go to the next one there, Angela. One thing I see a little bit used too much is the arrow. I think the arrow is great for pre-K and K when you're having kids working on one-to-one. But when you get to first and second grade, the arrow, I use it more as a way for kids to explain a drawing or explain a picture. Don't use them when they're trying to read, because it really slows them down, and it's hard to hear if they're actually reading fluently because the arrow does not keep up always with the speed of their reading. You go to the next one. Okay, so reading passages. I see so many questions on Seesaw of how do I have my kids read? And you can certainly take live video. You can use apps such as Shadow Puppet EDU. There's different ways to have your kids read. One thing I like to do, though, I don't always get to meet with all my readers each day, so I have reading passages that I share with them. So even though I might be with a group, they can read to me, and I can just check in with them here and there. So again, I use the caption tool to write down kids' names. Other times, though, I use the label feature, and I put a level. So you can see on this example, I put a level L. So I have my kids look through all the different examples I shared, and they try to find one they think is right for them. This gives me a clue into whether or not I think that they are picking appropriate passages too. You can see I use the trick of creating fake students. If you look over there where all my students are, you'll see me on the top, you'll see reading, word study, and I created them as fake students. So my students can, when they want to Seesaw, tap on that, and it will only show what I've shared inside of reading. All right. I also put a little asterisk or a little star or something like that before the word reading or Mr. Robinson, because it'll keep it at the very top of your list of students, which is kind of nice too. I actually got this passage about the President of the United States from readworks.org. If you have not checked out readworks.org, it's free. There are tons and tons of great fiction and nonfiction literature in there that you can get tons of passages, and a lot of them have comprehension along with them as well. All right, this one is a little video. I learned this trick just out of, I don't remember how I got to it actually, but I had this nonfiction text features chart, and I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if I could somehow erase pieces of this? And I was thinking immediately, well, I could go old school and use some whiteout. But then when I thought about it, I took the screenshot of this chart, and then what I actually used is the drawing tool, and I picked the color white. And when you pick the color white, you can actually color right over the top of existing text. So I went through and I erased what was already there, and then I was able to replace it with either nothing or with text labels that I want them to move around into the right spaces. Okay? And you can go to the next one, Angela. That's okay. You don't need to play that.
Yeah, I tried to play it, and then these slides started going crazy on me. But when you guys get the slides, make sure you watch. He has a little tutorial video showing how he used the white crayon and then added labels to actually create movable text, which is pretty cool. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, use it one time.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you do it one time, you'll get it. You really will.
Yeah.
So blended learning is another big thing. A lot of teachers are trying to get away from whole class teaching and trying to do more small groups like we do in reading. So a couple of the ways that I do that is I use an app called Viddle, but you can use tons of different apps. Educreations, Explain Everything, Viddle, Screencastify if you're using a laptop or a Chromebook, and it allows you to record yourself and your movements. So in this one, you can see I actually, in the word study folder, I recorded a video of me teaching the kids how to do the sort, and then below it, I created a sort using the label feature that they can then copy and edit. So during my reading time, I have an independent center where the kids can watch a video and then do an activity all within Seesaw. And creating sorts of any kind within Seesaw is amazing. You just start it out for them, give them a template, like I did here with the at, it, and ot. Then you can put some words down that they need to sort. When they copy and edit it, they're going to pretend like they're going to add more labels and hit the little text button, or the text box button, but then they actually don't add more. They can then move the labels you made around. So that is just a great way for me to check in with them. And not only that, they can actually read the words as they sort them or after they sort them, so that I know that they knew what they were doing. So in the next one, I love this too when you're doing blended learning, recording spelling tests. And I don't remember who I got this idea from, but it's been a game changer. I have 4 different spelling groups in my room, and any K2 teacher knows that the second you start doing a spelling test, somebody's got to go to the bathroom or you have to go back. With this is great. I just have the kids tag down below in the caption so they know which test is theirs. And it only takes me 2 minutes to record this quick video of me just saying, number 1 is pig. All right, press pause and then write pig on your test. And then the kids press play when they're ready, and off they go again. So they can all self-pace. I have some students that constantly need me to repeat it. They can just go ahead and rewind the video a little bit, listen to it again and again as many times as they need to. So this has been a real time saver and game changer for me for spelling tests. And then I was gone for 4 days earlier this year, which you can imagine at the beginning of the year is really difficult with K2. But one of the things I was able to do is I actually made fake students for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I put blended learning lessons right in those days so that I didn't have to leave extensive notes for my guest teacher. I just told her, have kids open Seesaw, go to Monday, and then play my writing video. And here I am doing a whole writing lesson, and then the kids can watch that writing lesson, and then when they're done, they get out their writing folder and off they go. I love doing this. And just as an aside, if you have kids that are getting pulled out of your classroom to go to reading specialists or things like that, if you're doing a read aloud or another activity, just press record on your device and then go ahead and share it with the child so that they can come back and watch the rest of your read aloud or get the rest of your lesson on their own time. I just love it for this, and honestly the kids are really engaged when they're watching these videos. I even asked the guest teacher to make sure, were they engaged? I know I wasn't here, and she said the kids were really into it, were watching my videos and following along. So as long as you don't overuse the videos and do them too often, the kids really like them and like that they can go at their own speed too. So blended learning is wonderful. Just record the video in whatever you're using and then share it in Seesaw in a way that the kids can see it in their feed, and off you go.
Yeah, and I love that. I have done that in my class, and it saves so much time when you're trying to write sub-plans. Sometimes it's just easier to talk through it, and I would highly recommend it. Awesome idea. Yeah.
I feel like I'm hijacking you. If you are worried about your kids finding those lessons, you can always just have the substitute just show it up on the board from Seesaw, just as an easy way to share it with your sub. Yeah.
And that's how in kindergarten, that's how my guest teachers would usually do it, is project it on the smart board and play whatever was in there. Another option could be if you wanted to print out the page that has the PDF with the QR code on it from any post, you could also have that printed out too. All right, we have we have a few more minutes here for questions. I know we just exploded tons of ideas at everyone, which I love, but I want to give them time to ask you all questions. I've been answering some of them as you've been presenting. So let's just dig in here. So Kristen is curious, do any of you have your students use the app at home to submit projects and assignments?
Yes, I do.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm having the kids do little scavenger hunts. So just today I sent out using the multi-feature for photos. Each photo had a separate step for the instructions, and I wanted the families to use the app to have their child point to a number. So we're working on single-digit numbers right now, 0 through 9. If they see a number, point to it, take a picture, and send it through the class app. And I've already gotten a few submissions, and I just sent it out tonight. So that's one way to have the families engage.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Melodee.
All I've done is put a link for a Google form in there, and when we start working more in first grade on reading questions and answering with text evidence, then the students can read and type their answers in on the Google form through Seesaw from home because the link's right in there in their account. But I haven't done much more than that.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's jump into another question. Taylor wants to know, is all of this being done in the free Seesaw app or the purchased one? So I can answer that quickly. Everything you've seen here tonight is with free Seesaw. These 3 amazing teachers are Seesaw ambassadors, so they do have the upgraded Seesaw Plus that they get to play with as well. So yeah, that's the kind of the quick answer there. Everything you see, you know, it's free, what we're talking about here tonight. Let's see. Question about how do you manage the time it takes to approve everything, especially listening to all the recordings? Eric, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So I try to remind my students to think about what they are going to say before they say it. That will save you a ton of time. You can also teach them to hit pause when they're thinking instead of going in the video. That helps save a little time. I think beyond that, once you start making the transition from using worksheets and going, I'm not paperless, but I use a lot less paper now, I think that you just use your planning time differently. When I use my planning time now, yes, more of it is listening to children talk and going through some things on Seesaw, but that is instead of checking through worksheets and putting them in their mailbox. I do some of it at home as well, as I did with my worksheets as well. But I like the fact that I can do it from home anytime I get a second. I can just take that second to go through and approve. And sometimes I bulk approve things. If I was there watching the kids do something, I may take a chance and just go ahead and hit the approve all and just go for it if it was something we were doing as a class.
Great tips. Love them. All right, Kelsey is wondering, do you prefer to post things for students to find in the fake student instead of just assigning them to everyone and putting it in like a reading folder, for example? Eric, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, I think it's really teacher preference. Your kids are going to learn no matter how you do it. I mean, I know teachers who've used QR codes to do it. There's certain teachers that they just have one fake student named Mrs. Jansen or whatever their name is, and that works well enough for them. The reason I like to create fake students is because maybe I put the video for them or the assignment on a Sunday, and then by the time they get to it on like Monday afternoon, it's buried way down in their feed. I find that it's a little easier for them to find it if they can tap on that fake student, and it will bring it right up to the top. So I prefer that, but I think QR codes are another great option, especially for the little ones. When you get down to kindergarten and pre-K, that's a great way to get started.
All right, great answer. Taylor wants to know, this is a great discussion topic, and I love this question. Do you still approve posts when the student shows they do not fully understand the concept? I want to start first on this one. Yes, I do. Yeah. Because I really believe in the process of learning, and I think part of the amazing component of Seesaw is it really does capture the thinking process and current level that the student is at, and that's not a bad thing. So that's kind of my 2 cents. Anyone else want to jump in?
I will, yes. I definitely agree with Angela. And I told parents this in our parent night, like the second week of school, that you will not only see the beautiful flowers, you will see the stumbles, and you will see the trips and falls, because that is a learning process. And I want them to know a clear picture of where their child is. And I think that's a true portfolio. So I totally agree.
Yeah, I totally agree also. I mean, you can't show progress if you don't show where they start. So yeah, definitely post all those fumbles.
I think it's important to comment on the fumble too, so that the parent knows, like, oh, the teacher listened and they have a good point, and then they have a discussion topic to, you know, come to with their student at home as well. Like, hey, did you see what your teacher said about this? Why do you think they said that? So I love to use the comments in a place where a child is showing that they don't understand and when they understand, so the parents kind of can see both sides of it.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, the only time that, the two times I watch it is, number one, if you hear my voice in the background saying something, which is the worst, when you're saying something like, hey, would you guys sit down? You're like, oh, no. But the other one is, I really think about the dignity of the child. I think that's the one time that I will not approve something. I might just sock it away for later and maybe show the parents at a conference. If you just don't approve it, then you have options. You can either download it to your device and save it as a video so it's private, or if you have the paid version, you can put it in your private teacher folder, and then you can have that one-on-one with a parent and tell them what was going on, rather than, as we know, sometimes emails or comments don't always tell the whole story. So that would be the one place that I would be a little bit leery about that. But beyond that, I totally agree that you just got to share everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Absolutely.
I think it's good for,
oh my goodness,
that's a good thing for behavior.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit earlier about people discuss, like, should I use Seesaw for behavior tracking? And so I want to kind of throw that out there quickly. My feeling, I'll start, is I really like students to feel a lot of ownership in what they're creating in their portfolio. So in my classroom, I had never used it for, you know, sending home a daily behavior report or anything like that, because I didn't want anything to interfere with the students' ownership that they felt in their own portfolio. Melodee, do you want to jump in?
Yes. So in my classroom, and I also encourage the other teachers in my building to not use it as a behavior system, only because in my previous life, when I taught on a different preschool, we were heavy on behavior, and it was reported every single day when the parents would come to pick up their kids. And sometimes that can just really deflate the child's whole day, all the other things that they've been learning, all the other things that they've been doing. And for me, because I want to keep the parents opening the app and not shying away from it, I want to keep everything as positive as I possibly can. So when they get that notification, they're like, oh, I want to open this, not, uh-oh, what happened today?
And Eric, what's your 2 cents?
So I do use it sparingly for behavior, basically to share awesome things that happened that day. So sometimes if I have like really great helpers, I will have them put on one of my old like running medals, and I take a picture of them, and then I put in the caption or a little quick thing for the parents saying, wow, you should have seen how hard they were working today. They did great. So if it's uplifting, if it's something that the child, it's a conversation starter, maybe at dinner to say, check out what I did. I love it for that, because a lot of times kids can't explain that once they get home. So I do love it as that, but I would never use it as a behavior management system. I think that there are much better ways to do that. I totally agree with Melodee that it can really deflate the entire day when it's like, hey, check out all my reading stuff I did, and womp womp, I wasn't behaving during art or something like that. That just seems like it's such a hard way to share things with parents. So I would definitely handle that in a different way.
Exactly. All right. Well, like I said, we could just go on all night and keep chatting, and I'd love to, but I also want to respect everyone's time with joining us here tonight. So I want to thank our awesome panelists, Melodee, Renee, and Eric. Great ideas, and I know they would all be really excited to connect with you on Twitter. I'm going to actually jump back so you can see their Twitter accounts too. They would love to connect with you and continue the conversation. But we are going to say goodbye for today. Please join us for another PD in PJs. We have lots going on this month. And actually on Thursday is Seesaw Chat on Twitter. So you just go to the hashtag Seesaw Chat at 4 Pacific on Thursday, and you'll see lots more amazing ideas. So thanks everyone for coming tonight, and in a minute you'll see a survey pop up. We would love to hear your feedback and ideas for additional webinars. But panelists, thanks for coming tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.